Hi, and welcome to the show. This is Wednesday. It's Recovery Wednesday, and it's June the 22nd, 2016. Our call-in number is 646-200-4169. Press 1, and that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and your questions because that makes this your show. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart.
Michael.
You've got me. Can you hear me, sweetie?
I do. Yep.
Hello?
You're on.
Oh, okay. All right, good. The way you said hello, Michael, I thought, whoops, maybe there's something not working with my microphone. But anyway, we are honored, delighted that everybody's with us to have this conversation today, to continue looking at this absolutely ancient recovery technology, the technology for recovering a human life, for going back to functioning out of the truth of who we are, rather than getting stuck in addictive processes. Today's Recovery Wednesday, and when we look at the idea of recovery, we're talking about recovering the true state of being that we all started out in. Our definition, as I will repeat often and forever, is hold a newborn child, you know exactly what a human life is. You know what that awesome active presence of love feels like. And to recognize that there are all sorts of things we can become addicted to avoid experiencing that. And oftentimes that addiction, that person, place, our definition of addiction is the compulsive use of any person, place, substance, circumstance, or activity. And the activity can also be modes of thinking that keep us from experiencing and being in touch with our highest guidance, and or to keep us from feeling and dealing with something that's going on inside of us. And when we compulsively use those things to avoid contact with the truth of who we are or avoid feeling what's going on, then we get stuck in those patterns of addiction. And one can use anything from a thought. They can use pain, turmoil, trauma, hostility. One of the most common drugs on the planet is the drug of hostility, grief, rage. The granddaddy is that hostility drug. It's the one that seems to be the first turn to when someone holds a goal that either they are not achieving or someone else is not achieving for them. And this is the principle that leads one to recognize that the whole system is goal-driven, and that the goal is what shows us in the surface mind something from the underside of the mind, the hidden part of the mind, and becomes this what you do with the goal in a circumstance where there's some sort of pain or turmoil or trauma is to cancel the goal, and the canceling of the goal is what leads to the act of forgiveness. And forgiveness means removal. It doesn't mean letting somebody else off the hook. It was interesting. I was communicating with someone the other day on Facebook, and I sent them a link to video explaining forgiveness, and she wrote back and said, yeah, well, I understand that. And then was right back to her posts about what was wrong in her life and how it was somebody else's fault. It's like, well, the idea isn't to understand it. The idea isn't to know about it. The idea isn't to go, oh, now I'm aware that I can set it aside and keep doing my same old thinking, my same old, gratifications, the same old things that get me attention or, whatever I use. But to utilize the awareness of forgiveness to actually engage in the act of forgiveness. And recognizing that the system is goal-driven, canceling the goal, collapses what the surface mind is seeing and gives access to the deeper hidden parts of the mind. The only reason people wouldn't want to, there are a couple of reasons, I guess, probably many, but main reasons why people wouldn't want to do that is, one, they're getting something. They get a reward out of whatever their pained or disturbed process is. Gee, I get attention. All sorts of things happen in that regard. Or I think I deserve this pain or this trauma. And or I erupt into some energy that anesthetizes that pain or trauma. And once one engages in the process of forgiveness and chooses to let go of identification with or the need for whatever the reward is that comes with the pain or the trauma, then one starts to wake up to, oh, even in the presence of this event, I could experience the active presence of love. And why would I give that up if I can experience that? I'd only give it up because my mind sees something else as being useful. My mind has another goal. And so this relentless pursuit of what's the goal that's driving this circumstance, and when I cancel it, what do I get in touch with, and am I willing to keep pulling forward the active presence of love until this underlying dynamic, this underlying energy is forgiven, is removed. So that's what we're here to do. And Jeannie, is Dr. Tim with us?
He is, and he's on, and so is Gail.
Well, let's start it with a hello to Dr. Tim.
Hello, hello.
How do you be, young man?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm here to report that we had another, for my purposes, delightful group last night. We watched the interpretation of the Beatitudes from Yam, who channeled the not Course in Miracles, but Way of Mastery. And we had several people last night who were wanting to do still point breathing. And I had to explain to them it takes more than just on the spot, let's go do still point breathing. So we agreed to plan one of those for the not too distant future. And then we listened to how the Beatitudes can be interpreted as instructions for breathing into and allowing things to flow whenever something unlike love comes into my awareness. And we watched that, and then we had a very, very intense discussion about what it's like to do that, what happens in my interactions with other people when I do that. And so again, I'm just blessed to have a group of people like that who are willing to sit and question those things deeply for themselves, and it's getting very clear listening to some of the people who've come to the group for months and years now that they're changing their lives for the better week after week. So it's a blessing to be around that. And they're recovering from the false belief that they're something less than love. So that's my report, and I'm here and interested in what Gail has to say and other callers about Recovery Wednesday.
Yay. Yay, the genius when you get back to the first century Aramaic, and of course there are many shades of meaning, so Yam has some powerful stuff to say, and to me the key thing to understand about the Beatitudes is recognizing that as opposed to a nice philosophy, which I can remember when I was a kid, the Beatitudes were there, and you're told, blessed are you, blessed are you, blessed are you, and it was kind of like this nice, set of things you can do. You can be poor, you can mourn, and on and on. But when you go to the first century Aramaic, it's like, no, here's how you recover. Here's your set of recovery instructions. You go back to the truth of who you are, and what awakens in you is your natural state of being. So definitely powerful stuff. And I can remember it wasn't until I wrote out of the Enlightenment Manual that I rewrote the Beatitudes out of the first century dictionary. That third time around, I was like, oh my God, this is a set of instructions. This isn't just a philosophy. And so much is. The Lord's Prayer is what people call the Lord's Prayer, isn't it? Prayer, it's a set of instructions. And that's what Yeshua was doing. He was always instructing people on recovery. Here's how you do it. Here's how you recover the true state of being that you are. So, great, cool. And Miss Gail, how are you, young lady, out there in the far reaches of Illinois, as Jeannie would say?
I am well.
Awesome. What's on your mind today?
A great deal. I think I could tie. I think I could tie what we're talking about and what we've been discussing all week, or what I've heard you talk about all week, starting with energy and its movement and healing, and with my grand adventures with canceling goals that started last Monday. So should I start?
Let's go for it. Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Yay.
Gotcha. I'm not exactly where to start. Should I start with my confession first and then go with the the adventure?
Okay, we'll hear confession, sure. We'll hear confession and give you absolution.
Okay, thank you. Last year when I attended,
we could start out with a little. We could start out with a little. My father plays dominoes better than your father.
I don't think that's true. But anyway, last summer at Heartland, I attended the Laws of Living class, and I made the commitment to complete the work after the 42 days, 6 weeks after that, to become certified in Laws of Living. And I did all the other work in that except for the worksheet. And the reason why I didn't do the 5 worksheets a day, because 5 worksheets a day are required with the rest of the worksheets, my reason or justification or excuse is that I was doing the worksheets and I hit a childhood sexual abuse issue. When I was 6 years old, being molested by the son of my mother's first boyfriend that she had after the divorce. And so I was stuck and didn't do that. Talked to you about it with the agreement to come to Laws of Living again, try this again, and I did it again. I did all of the other stuff for the 10 weeks or 66 days, which in my it computes to 10 weeks for me, and then to do the 5 worksheets a day. And I got stuck again with childhood sexual abuse issues. And so
Now, when you say stuck, what does that look like?
Stuck for me is I can't move forward, do more worksheets. I can't go to the next level, or maybe I don't have enough vitality. I can't touch a worksheet. I'm given visions when I get down in the worksheet and cancel the goal. It says, "What do you see?" And, I see things, and I guess I put myself in a protective mode where I don't want to see it. I don't maybe feel supported enough. I don't know how to ask for help or support, maybe to go through that. That is probably it. That everything that I said is it.
Mm-hmm.
The paralyzed would be another thing. I guess a great deal of fear, being paralyzed, and the adventures in the past week have been about, I guess, having enough vitality, feeling safe enough, knowing that I could ask for help, of course, with a little bit of negative self-talk, that if I called you and asked you for help, that I would be rejected. that happened on Father's Day, and then I realized what that rejection was about. The rejection, or the feeling of rejection, was about you haven't done your laws of living homework, you haven't been honest about what you've done with your laws of living homework, and so since you haven't done this, you're stuck, and you're not going to be able to reach out because you may be rejected.
So this is all an internal thought process you're talking about.
Absolutely. This is an internal thought process. You need to get your worksheets done. You need to turn in your stuff before you can ask Michael and Jeannie for help.
Well, that's interesting.
Where did you create
so
that?
Here I am facing something that's difficult for me, and I can't get the help until after I don't need it. Is that kind of what it's like? It's kind of like the way bankers work. If you need a loan, you can't have it until you have so much money that you don't need the loan. Then we'll give you a loan. It's like.
And that's a really good question, Jeannie. I heard you, and I think that stems back to, and I'm going to tie this into some other blocks that I have as well. When I was, I don't even know what to call this, attacked, assaulted. I need to look up the words on what these words mean. But when I was attacked by the manager of the fast food restaurant that I worked at when I was 16, I stuffed that so deep. I didn't ask for anybody for help with that. Matter of fact, I stayed at that job until I was a senior in high school. I was a sophomore when I took that job. And I didn't report it. I forgot about it after it happened. After I walked up the stairs, I forgot about it. And it was until I was 2 years sober that I remembered it. And I didn't ask for help then. And then a lot of my academia, being the ability to do math, because I was in advanced math classes at that time. And I was in it my junior year. I ended up in an advanced English class. And my ability to write and my ability to do math is attached to that trauma. And I went from being an AB student with I was going to go to the University of Illinois, which is a very prestigious college, and I was going to be a veterinarian, and went to barely graduating from high school. And so a lot of the things that need to be written, like there are two things that I need to give to Jeannie to be written. I haven't been able to do it. I have my purpose statement to write to be on the website, and I have her endorsement to do. I haven't been able to do it. And Dr. Phil asked me for a proposal in order to introduce still point breathing to his practice, and I haven't been able to write those things out. I'm totally and completely blocked. I sit down to write and I panic. And
sounds like that word paralyzed fits in there.
Absolutely.
So paralyzed, when you mention it, you mentioned paralyzed as feeling paralyzed. But I think paralyzed is maybe a state of physiology or a state of mind. What would the feeling that goes along with it, what would the thinking that goes along with it be?
When you were saying it and when you were starting to talk, when I originally called in about this, because I had called in about seeing the 50 Shades of Grey, and Jeannie was talking about there's actually 3 responses. There is fight, there is flight, and there is freeze. And I never heard the freeze part. And that's exactly what I did when this was happening to me. I froze. And the thinking that was going through my mind is don't move. Don't move, don't respond. Your only way to survive is to stay frozen and to not respond.
So you still haven't gotten to the feeling.
Okay, the feeling. I would say
breath.
total and complete, unadulterated terror.
Are you breathing?
I don't know.
Okay, well, why don't you just pay attention, and we'll invite everybody that's listening to breathe as well, if anybody's holding your breath. This is a more common issue than the world would have us believe. And so let's all just take a minute and we'll just breathe with you. And invite you to recognize that while there's a part of your mind that's frozen in that terror and that experience, that you're now safe and you're not there anymore. So you can let that open and let that go. You can unfreeze the skills and the parts of your mind that you put on hold at that point and bring the presence of love to them. And just invite everybody to spray the energy of love in your direction. That can soften and open. And it's safe to embrace every dynamic of that experience from your present state of being.
Can I offer something too?
Absolutely.
And I offer this, Gail, because you and I have talked, and I've been there too and experienced that, and it all fits perfectly because for me anyway, and I believe you had agreed that this is what happened with you, is that I froze, but it was also, Michael talks about dissociating, being that you deny and you dissociate that what's happened is yours, but there's also a disassociation, which is what I did when I froze, and it's like you step outside your body so that you can no longer, it helps to make the pain and what's happening more tolerable. And so feeling safe enough to come back into your body is what came to me when you talk about not feeling safe enough to go forward and to look at the issues. So taking that breath and being safe enough to actually come back into your physical body and face it. And one of the things I remember in the first women's intensive that I did, there was a lady that kind of went through that. And what I did, I noticed she kept closing her eyes. And so I went over and held her hands and said, look at me and talk about it. Because when you close your eyes, it's like you go back into the incident. And it's just a memory of the incident. And you survived it going through it. You'll survive going through the memory of it. And so I held her hands and I said, you're in this space. You're not in the time when it happened. I said, so look at me and talk about it and know that you are here. You are in a safe space. You're not back there when it happened. So if there's anybody, I know you don't have a support group there, but if there's anybody that you could physically get with and hold their hand or touch them physically and talk about it and keep your eyes open as you talk about it and move through it, I found that helped get her through it. And, journaling about it. I know writing the book that I'm writing has helped me. And one of the things I hear in your voice that resonates for me, because I feel like I have moved to a great deeper level too, is the ability to be able to actually talk about it without falling apart. And, it's a memory of something that happened. And yes, we have to face it and deal with it. But I honor you and give you accolades for as far as you've come. I mean, you're able to talk about it and stay in what appears to me anyway, coming through the phone, a calm space. So I don't know if that'll help, but that's just what came to me as you were talking there.
That helps a lot. That helps a lot. And Dr. Tim, when you decide to do your still point breathing, I'd like to be a part of that. I would be more than willing to drive 4.5 hours up to see you and to be a part of that with you and your group. So I want to say that before I forgot.
Okay. Well, what's coming to mind for me as I listen to this is I've worked with so many people who are ready and willing to go through the memories and dissolve them, as Michael was saying, to get all of that energy out of your system related to that, and to do exactly what Jeannie was just talking about. This is one of the most effective tools we have in resolving trauma, and it's being scientifically demonstrated that I can hold the awareness that I'm here as an adult, and at the same time expand my awareness to this other part of me, this other part of my mind or my energy system that remembers everything about the sights and sounds and emotions and conclusions that I downloaded at the time of the trauma, and just alternate back and forth between the two, holding the truth of the awareness of both of these conflicting energy states. And in that process, with the appropriate support and, when needed, some additional tools, my mind says, oh, these can't both be true. Let me resolve it in a way that lets me move forward. So part of me was thinking, well, it'd be great if Gail drove back up here again and we did some of that trauma work and helped her move right through. She's done so much of the laying the foundation with Jeannie and Michael's support and her own work that it's you're right there at the threshold, ready to just step through into a whole new level of being able to access and move through what you say is blocking you.
Understood, and thank you for the offer, and we will have a conversation. What was moving for me while I was breathing, a lot of solar plexus chakra energy, and it seemed to be shooting down to the sacral chakra. And a lot of energy was moving and throat chakra as well.
And as you breathe into that, remember that integrated into that whole conversation is the active presence of love. That to the degree you can, as you move through this, as Tim suggested, that you can bring forward that presence of love. And there's a whole community all over the globe right now just focusing that presence of love on you. And that's the master energy that dissolves it. So acknowledge yourself for the level of support you've created.
Thank you. I most definitely did not have it then. I will have to investigate. My mom kept saying, what happened to you your sophomore year in high school? And I could never give her an answer because I couldn't remember. And when she was dying, she asked me again, what happened to you? Because my behavior after that started to create, well, there was a lot of discourse anyway, but I became a scapegoat for her and my stepdad, just a constant target after that. And then I started to become a scapegoat for my dad as well, and my stepmother, just a source of gossip and criticism, and nobody would talk to me, nobody would ask me, but they would talk about me, and I've created those dynamics over and over again as well. And so, yeah, there's a lot of energy behind this, and a lot of energy. I was finally able to tell her, probably a week before she died, that this is what happened to me, and she just sat there and cried.
Yeah, I can only imagine how a mom would feel hearing that from her daughter. Did she share whether anything like that had ever happened to her?
I would make assumptions. I can only make assumptions, but I don't know. And the only reason that I would make those kind of assumptions would be based on the kind of men that she drew into her life, like my dad and my stepfather, and their dynamics. And also, when I asked her as a kid, you ask your parents, tell me some memories of childhood, and she couldn't remember anything from childhood. So that's a pretty good sign as well.
Yeah.
As far as knowing, I keep investigating whether my grandfather was a perpetrator, and I honestly don't think that he was. But anyway, more will be revealed. And
of course, the main thing you want to do at this point is be conscious of your thinking, and that any thoughts that surface from that experience, from the having gone through that and the thoughts that came with it, as they surface, remember that you're not interested in buying them, you're interested in forgiving them. You're not interested in creating an identity based in them, you're interested in just breathing, softening, and letting them go. There's the king who offered half his kingdom to the person. I guess he was manic depressive, and he'd be in such highs and then he'd be in such lows, and he said, half of my kingdom to someone who can make me happy when I'm sad and sad when I'm happy. And the person who got half the kingdom was the person who gave him the coin that said, this too will pass on it. And to remember that you're accessing these energies not to get locked in them. Oftentimes, especially with something where there's that frozen state with something like sexual abuse, it's so intense. It's so such a violation of the energy system that one can build an identity on it and get lost in those thoughts as though those thoughts were life itself and who I am. And to remember that rather than building an identity based in it, the idea of surfacing these thoughts is to allow the active presence of love to dissolve them, to recognize that there is that elemental force, Rukudakucha, you're not on your own. That elemental force that Yeshua talked about is inside of you, and when you invite her into activity, she will, as a feminine elemental force, undo the effects of that energy experience and free you from it.
Understood.
Sometimes people get stuck. I remember back, probably 30 years ago, 28 years ago, something like that, I worked with a therapist in North Carolina, and he'd been doing primal scream therapy he was a primal scream therapist and been, I forget how many years it was, 17 years earlier. And so I was doing some forgiveness work with him and still point breathed him, and all of a sudden he just clicked into this, and I'd never seen it before, this kind of guttural, low scream, kind of a mix of a whine and a cry, and it's like, okay, let's breathe, and he wouldn't breathe. He just went into this, it's like, after this went on for about 10 minutes, and I said, well, what's happening for you? Oh, I remember when my mother wouldn't feed me, and I was so painful, I was rejected. I said, and when did you first get in touch with this? He says, when I worked with Janov 17 years ago doing primal scream. It's like, you're a therapist, and 17 years later you're still hanging out with the same thing you got in touch with back then? The idea isn't to build an identity, the idea is to dissolve it, to be willing to just let it go and be free of that energetic offense. And that's where Ruka comes in, that's where the breath comes in, that she will flush and wash that clean. So that literally, if we go to the definition, and this is why for recovery we're not on our own, if we go to the definition of Rukudakucha, it's been translated as the Holy Spirit from the Aramaic. It was translated that way by the Greeks, but it's got nothing to do with the disembodied spirit being. It's literally a feminine elemental force based in love that's there to help us to undo the effects of our errors and teach us the truth. And all of the effects, the chemical effects in the cell, the emotional effects in the physiology, the results that have been produced from that trauma through the years of holding it, this elemental force being omnipresent can reach out. And of course, our own free will never be violated. So if I choose to use this as an identity, as a way to get attention, as whatever, if I choose it that way, then I can stay with it that way. And unless I'm willing to have that cracked and removed, that elemental force will respect your choice, your free will, and not touch it. But the instant I'm willing to ask for it to truly be dissolved, it will be dissolved.
Well, I will mention 3 more things.
Go for it.
The one thing that I wanted to mention is that, and this is totally completely off topic, Dale Allen Hoffman is having a retreat this weekend in Oswego, and and I will be there on Saturday if anybody else is going to be there. So I was just going to mention that real quick. And then also my grandson is in the hospital in Springfield, Illinois, which is an hour and a half away from where I'm at. Basically, the hospitals in Southern Illinois are triage hospitals, and they transport cases to other hospitals like to St. Louis or to Springfield. And he has an enlarged lymph node that they thought if it got bigger, it would block his airway. It's in his neck. And he's on IV antibiotics at this time, and his doctor also wanted to see him see a pediatric ears, nose, and throat doctor. So if everybody could send their energy in his general direction, that would be fantastic. I haven't heard really anything else. He may be released late tonight or tomorrow. He goes to the other grandparents who are heavy smokers. Both of them are heavy smokers. And in that process, my thinking is that his thinking is that he's being abandoned, or he gives up, and that's why he gets sick. This is the 3rd time he's been sick like this. A lot of upper respiratory infection type things. And so, prayers for his parents to make different decisions, and holding the space for his care. My daughter's in a relationship that her fiance is very controlling, and she has a lot of fear. She makes a lot of decisions based on fear. And when she's in that situation, she pushes away from me because she can only listen to, him and his parents. His parents are very controlling as well. And so I get pushed out of the picture quite a bit in this situation. And I'm grateful for these tools because I can hold the space. And I haven't been up there yet, but I've been holding the space for him. I've been sending him Reiki. I've been connecting to him on a spiritual level. And I know that he's going to be okay. So I'm actually in a pretty good place considering everything that's going on.
Well, we hold the space and see that lymph node softening and being able to flow, let the energy flow through it, and whatever's blocking it up. It might be a time to get some concise information about especially a developing set of lungs and a developing body, growing body, and the impact of secondhand smoke on the upper respiratory system. It might just be worth presenting that to your daughter and her fiance, and it's pretty intense for a child to be in that environment. And then, of course, the emotional component of why do people take such a deep anesthetic as nicotine and 500 other chemicals. usually there's a whole lot of other dynamics going on. And so if we just hold the space for your grandson to be impervious to all of that and let that energy loosen and flow through his lymphatics.
Thank you. I will do a very brief synopsis of the my processing from last Monday. It started with my other daughter. I have twin daughters that are 25 years old. This is my oldest by a minute. She was having problems with her car, and I live 2 hours away from her. She's back where we're originally from, which is Bloomington Normal, Illinois. She's going to school to be a teacher. She's taken a 4-hour biology class during summer session, which is pretty intense. It's 2.5 hours an evening for 4 days a week, and she was having car problems. And her father is close to her. I started doing a series of worksheets on her dad before this all happened, based on an incident that happened while I was pregnant with my daughters 26 years ago. And then it dropped down into doing worksheets about my dad. And then I have been doing about, I'd say, 60 worksheets on my dad. I have a lot of goals to cancel for my dad. And what has happened with this is just a lot of energy movement. According to Louise Hay, where we store our weight tells you what kind of energy you're holding, and so a lot of thigh and buttock stuff. I always used to, when we would do processing at the intensive in Florida, that I would talk about having a butt burn, meaning that it was like exercising, like doing Jane Fonda's aerobics or something. I could feel the burn because that was the kind of energy that was moving in the thighs, and a lot of abdominal movement as well. And by last Friday, I had developed a urinary tract infection by the time that I left work. And according to Louise Hay as well, who are you pissed at? And I was very much, what was coming up for me was pissed off at my former for his lack of help with my daughter with the car, and also at my dad starting to drill down and to cancel all these goals that I had for him. And a lot of movement in the abdominals during this whole worksheet process. And I think I told you that I released at least 5 pounds during all this. And I used the oregano oil to combat it, and taking that, and also using silver water, and of course gallons of cranberry juice, and coumarin, which has willow bark in it. It's a natural anti-inflammatory medication that's in a capsule form. So I wanted to add that in case anybody else ends up with a urinary tract infection and they don't want to take antibiotics. They want to do something natural. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about that energy movement. And when I left to go to a gathering for Father's Day that my stepmother was hosting, I went to the door and was ready to walk out, and I peed my pants. And you and I had talked about fear. Louise Hay talks about, children that wet their bed are usually afraid of their father. So that's where bedwetting comes from. And just I just wanted to talk about and see what you had to say about that kind of energy movement, and see if I have anything else to add to the story, because I'm pretty choppy right now about it. But anyway, I'll listen.
And so what's happening with your breath?
That's very sporadic as well.
Oh, okay. So you might just really want to pay deep attention to that. And it sounds like you're doing all of the above around what's moving in each arena. So it sounds like you're right on track. I'm not sure Bernie Sanders would appreciate the connotation of feel the burn. But anyway, it sounds like you're moving the layers, and that's the key to it all.
Gotcha.
So I don't have any other specific input. Jeannie, Dr. Tim?
No, sounds like you're right on track, and just, your willingness is awesome to just keep going through it, even though you say that, you got stuck and you're paralyzed and everything. It still sounds like you're taking the steps to move forward. So I offer be gentle with yourself, just keep taking step at a time and, avoid trying to storm the gates and get it all done overnight. But it sounds like you're moving in the right direction, and your willingness sounds phenomenal, and I honor you for that.
Thank you. I was most definitely wanting to storm the gates, for sure.
And
yes, ma'am.
You can ask for help, young lady.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sister.
It's what we're here for 5 days a week.
Gotcha.
And I would agree, and I would just add that I was hearing what struck me as some intense emotion around your statement that that kind of issue from Louise Hay or whatever relates to fear of the father. So I would just do a little bit more of the all above in that area.
Yeah. I have extreme fear of him, and he is one of my perpetrators.
Well, let's be clear about it.
As well.
Let's be clear about it. You have the fear, and it can get triggered by him.
Thank you for the clarification. So I did not go to the Father's Day thing, but I did talk to him yesterday, and the conversation went amazingly well. A lot of the goals that I canceled is that I receive a lot of criticism from him, and, treat me with dignity and respect, talk about me in the highest regard, talk to me, get to know me. And so he usually when I call, he hands the phone off to my stepmother. This time he actually talked to me, and when I started to talk about Aramaic forgiveness and where I'm at with it, meaning, implementing groups and facilitating still point breathing, he actually listened to what still point breathing is about, and was asking questions about what kind of trauma are you talking about that you hold your breath for. So he's a Vietnam vet. I don't know. That might have been one of the reasons why he was asking about that. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, it sounds like you're opening a different kind of space with him. That's awesome. And I take it all those goals that you mentioned around him, you've been canceling?
Yes.
Yeah, fabulous. So how about a mind shifter?
Go ahead. I knew you were going to say that. That's why I have my piece of paper and pencil right here.
All right.
Go for it.
And for anybody that's new to the show, just a brief explanation of what a mind shifter is. In the context of this work, a mind shifter is a thought about an issue in your life around which you have negative thoughts, and it's the opportunity to surface, process, and release the negative thought. And the way you do that is by using the thought as a catalyst. And so if this issue is there or up for anyone that is identifying with it, then you might try working with this mind shifter. And the way you work with it is you take a piece of paper and draw a line down the page. And the left-hand side of the line, you write the mind shifter. And you use that as a catalyst to resonate and do kind of a mind jump to let whatever moves in response to that thought. If I say don't think about the color of your car, the brain cells doesn't move or about the color of your car. It's just the way the mind works through resonance. So the mind shifter if you let yourself focus on it, will allow you to drill down into deeper parts of the mind. And so the mind shifter I would offer that might be useful here might be, it's safe and healing for me to stay fully connected to love and present when anyone, especially my father, criticizes me.
Okay, please repeat.
It's easy for me to stay connected to love and be fully present when anyone, especially my father, criticizes me. What does that do to your breath?
Oh, I stopped.
Okay. So that'll be a good one to work with and just peel those layers up. And it sounds like you're a good part of the way there with that phone call you had yesterday. And, you know, when you look at what men were going through at the time they were young boys and growing up in the culture, the time frame of your father, and then what they went through going to Vietnam, it was crazy. And so it sounds like you become the target of some of your father's craziness. And as you allow yourself to soften and are able to embrace the impact of that, along with the impact of that abuse issue, that you'll be able to take that whole mass of energy and move it out and just stand as the presence of love and perhaps become the catalyst that helps open the critical mass for men who've been abused.
And would you say it's very easy, the propaganda that was going on during the Vietnam era and the Korean War era, you know, we need to fight communism, we need to go over there, blah, blah, blah. It seems very similar. It feels very similar to the anti-Muslim propaganda that's going on now. And he seems to be falling into that very easily. Without
the ego mind changes enemy like, you know, like an athlete changes socks.
Exactly.
So,
okay.
You know,
if there's a
particular state of mind, if there's a particular state of mind, anybody who triggers it will serve, you know, my worst enemy or my best friend. You know, in the extreme, if there are no enemies around to put it on, then, you know, we've all watched it when somebody turned that mindset on a best friend, a spouse, a parent.
Yeah, agreed. I've had that happen to me as well.
And, and so it's about softening, breathing into, staying connected to the active presence of love, which is the space where that energy has nowhere to stick. It's experienced, it's insane. I take action and do behaviors that come from love to handle and deal with that energy, and I move forward as love. Maintaining awareness of who I am rather than getting lost in an identity I built based on some insane behavior that happens to me or around me.
Understood and agreed.
Recovering being. Holding to, the practice of holding to, consciously, purposely, the active presence of love when something different is moving in my carbon-based memory system. And sometimes, while you can be in touch with the event that was specific or the events that have happened to you, oftentimes those things were also triggers to genetic events that also need to be addressed and removed. And that's where Ruka comes in with support and assistance.
Understood. And would you add past life events as well?
Absolutely. It's the whole genetic chain, whichever way it was established.
I am complete, and we have 5 minutes.
Space. Yay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, we'll invite anyone who's ready to take their work to the next level to be aware that Heartland will be doing 2 major intensives. A 9-day WISE is happening to me again, a 16-day Laws of Living, if you're ready to take your work to the next level. And we're still kind of tweaking our new database system, so we haven't settled on a final, but it looks like probably the offer of the 15 free DVDs with registration for the intensive will be good until the end of the month. So anybody who's ready to do an intensive, if you're planning to do that, you might as well step forward and register and take advantage of that offer. There's $600 worth of DVDs that will be freely given as part of registration, and our encouragement is for people to take those and begin to work with them and listen and build brain cells, and that's what makes the next intensive more meaningful. So, and Jeannie, do we have anything happening in the chat room? Anybody else with a hand up?
Nobody has a hand up, and the chat room is quiet. We're down to 2 minutes, though, so we really don't have time to take on another one.
Okay.
Just ask again for, I'm actually a little amazed, I guess. We put out the request for, if people were interested in the member site, that we were doing the fundraiser, and we've had 3 people, and that's it. So, without the funds, we can't go forward with that. And
so
hold
if anyone wants
for us.
to support,
I was just going to say, as soon as the 4th of July week is finished, we're going to be going back down to Florida and packing up and everything, so hold the space for us as we travel back up to Heartland.
Yeah, well, that minute or so that we've got left, maybe we'll put out this request we've been talking about. We had a house in Ellenton, Florida for the winter to carry these projects forward, and several of them are on, completion and moving forward, and there's still more work to be done. So we're going to, we're putting out the request asking if anyone would have a space, and we're going to head back to Heartland mid-July. Then the intensive finishes, the Laws of Living finishes in mid-September, and beyond that date, we're going to ask if there's anyone that might have a space that they'd be willing to offer us for a private space that will give us the space to spend several months working on the writing and the other projects, finishing the DVDs up and such for the member site, and the upgrade of social media happenings. So if anybody's got a space that they might have, we'd need a good solid internet, and of course we want to be somewhere that's not in the middle of winter. So if anybody might have a space that they'd be willing to provide us with, that would be awesome. And beyond that, we're honored that you're here to have this conversation, and we hold the space for you to have the best year yet of your eternal life. Blessings.